And there we go. And welcome to Small Business Chat. Thank you so much for joining us. This is our first proper episode now for 2022. We did a little introduction the week before. You want to catch that on the feature page, please do, when we set our goals. But I'm so pleased. Welcome, Karen and Tanya. We've got a guest today, so it's a great one to kick off with. Was talking about finding your motivation mojo. I think a lot of us are feeling it. We felt it just before Christmas. I think a lot of us were thinking, oh, here we go, just get through 2021. And we're seeing a lot of articles about sort of how the feeling is with our teams, especially in HR titles. Put a link in the chat about one of those magazine titles about how we can help ourselves and our teams in business. But with so much going on, I think 2 years of ups and downs, business uncertainty, I think it's just hit us. I don't know about you ladies, but as I said in the video before, the week before, I felt like I crawled through 2021, and winter for me is still going on. So to try and be active and just trudge through that mud is still a challenge, and I want to know why.
Well, luckily we've got an expert in the house. So welcome, Tanya Nash. And she's going to tell us all about helping us find our motivation mojo and getting that back. And we'll be looking as well into sort of how COVID's affected us and also how we can manage stress and SAD. And then lastly, we'll also go into factoring the seasons within our business. And I think this is a super exciting topic as well. So over to you, Tanya. If you can tell us a little bit more about you and your business and why you came to do what you do as well.
So I'm a coach and consultant, and I tend to work with trying to build hopeful futures, particularly my background's in sustainable development and well-being, and I do a lot of work with nature. So I particularly in my coaching, I try and work with clients in nature. So even if we're online, I might suggest clients go out in nature in between our sessions to spend some time. And I'll explain a bit more about why that's important. And I suppose where I came to this from was really was my sort of own personal story I had. So in about 10-12 years ago, I found that in January, February, I was just exhausted, fatigued. So normally I would get up, I would have a cup of tea, I would start to, you probably hear this, you start to get your energy build, you start to get a bit more, wake up and you get a bit more, you can move around a bit more. But I was finding that wasn't happening. I was getting up, having the cup of tea, sitting on the chair in the kitchen, just going, I can't move. I just have got nothing left. So I took myself to the doctors thinking, you can do all the internet sort of diagnosis, can't you? Think, oh, what could this be? And they took the bloods, and actually when they came back, they said, no, everything's really, really good, but your thyroid levels, your thyroid hormone levels are right on the lowest of the normal range. So they weren't quite so low that they would intervene, but they were really, really low. And I had a great doctor who said, it's the time of year. We see a lot of this. And, do you work at a desk? Do you work in an office? Yeah, all of that. And he said, well, actually, what you're seeing is probably the impact of winter and the impact of lack of light, the impact of not being outside as much as you could in the middle of the day when it's most important. He said, come back in 2 months' time and we'll do the bloods again. And I went back in 2 months' time and my thyroid levels were back up, not only just well within the normal range, so towards the top of the normal range. And I went back the following year, exactly the same. They did my bloods, same thing again, exactly the same thing. So what you're seeing is that a sort of personal story around the evidence of neurotransmitters, things like serotonin, dopamine, melatonin, other impacts on your hormonal system are really affected by these shorter days and the limited access that we have during the winter to natural daylight. And the cold as well also has an effect, and it can have an effect, particularly on thyroid levels, interestingly enough. And so what then happens is we end up with these sort of mood changes, but often before these mood changes we'll have indications that things are happening. So you might find actually you're feeling quite tired, you're getting difficulty in waking up. I don't know if this is all resonating with you guys. You might start craving sugary foods and carbs, and you might start finding you're putting on weight. All of this is classic for me, it happens all the time. And then we can see that this then leads to a lack of motivation in work, and then you see it sort of follows on with these sort of mood changes. You stop wanting to see people, and this can lead into depression and what we see as and diagnose as seasonal affective disorder. And evidence and studies show that dropping levels of motivation and other symptoms start long before January. So whilst January might be the time we notice it, I think because it's post-Christmas and we're dealing with the sort of the drop after Christmas when we're all running around trying to get everything, making you feel happy, that we find that these symptoms, though, will start before January. And that whilst people's productivity will be its highest in October, this starts to drop in November and it hits its lowest in January and February. We see studies saying 44 to 50, over 50% of workers have a negative impact on, says winter has a negative impact on mood, mental well-being and motivation. So nobody's alone in this. And I suspect that there probably is a lot more happening that people might be attributing to other things. The other thing is this middle of winter is when it clashes with things like seasonal illnesses peaking, such as flu, and obviously COVID's had, the last 2 years COVID has had this real impact. But we also find that all of this is compounded by the fact that the things that make us feel better, the things that make us feel good and help us combat the impact of winter, we're actually doing less of. So spending time outside and doing exercise, being outdoors in nature, all has a real positive impact on our moods and our motivation. But actually 50% of people in the UK report that there are a reduction in physical activity over winter and spending time and reduce the amount of time they spend outdoors in winter months because it's too cold, it's raining. I don't know. It's absolutely really bleak and meek today where I am. So that is, you see this sort of impact and this sort of effect. And the charity Mind reports, the mental health charity Mind reports that an hour's walk at lunchtime can be really effective way to beat those winter blues and help us increase motivation. So lunchtime when the sun's up, when the light is at its strongest, can be a real impact, have a real positive impact. But hands up, how many of us actually make the time to do that, when we're running really busy lives?
Yeah, definitely. I think yesterday I'm looking outside today and it's actually really blue skies, but yesterday, and I do feel a bit more upbeat just when the weather changes. So whereas yesterday was really cold, wet, raining all the time, and it does kind of dampen your mood. And I mean, because you've talked about quite a few of a couple of tips of how we can kind of combat that. How do you feel we can help get our motivation? Other ways to get our motivation mojo back?
There are many ways that you can manage the moods that you associate, the motivation changes that you associate with winter, and the way that moods drop and your motivation drops, and they're really, really simple. But again, sometimes the motivation to do them can be the hardest thing. So planning ahead can be really helpful. Virtually, trying to connect with people, even if that's virtually or if you can do it face-to-face, great. We've seen the impact of COVID on our ability to be able to do this. And that's probably another reason why we're seeing the impact of winter having been much greater over the last couple of years than it has been before. So connecting with people. Now, if you work in a business with a team, then, having a regular weekly coffee morning or checking in with someone in the morning or in the afternoon or at a regular time, just saying, how are you doing? Is everything okay? It really helps. If you're working on your own and you're a freelancer, that can be quite tricky. So find what communities you can be part of, and they don't have to be professional, they can be social communities. So as a freelancer, and if you really can't find, you could create one your own community, because you're probably not the only person feeling this. So if you're working in a particular sector and there isn't a community where you can connect, why not see if you can create that or reach out to your networks to see if that weekly check-in would be helpful. And again, if you're running a business, team building activities at this period of time is really helpful. So whilst you might want to wait till it's warm and sunny outside in the spring or the winter, actually now is a good time to get your team outside. And you can do things like, do things like taking your meetings outside. So perhaps you're meeting with a team member, but you could do a walking meeting. You could meet them and connect them and do a walking meeting outdoors. And physical activity is key, absolutely critical. You know, if you're, like I said, it's one of those things that really can have such a beneficial a response. And I know a lot of people in January start picking up things and then they perhaps don't carry on with those good resolutions. But trying to do a little bit of activity each day really helps. So if you're taking your kids to school and you drive normally, try parking up a little further away each day and just walking that last little bit. You know, and if you can walk, even if it's raining, get the right clothes and equipment and walk, because it really does can make a huge difference. Being in nature is spectacularly restorative. And there's we can find that, and there's a huge amount of evidence that shows it really supports you building your intrinsic motivation. There's a theory called the attention restoration theory that was proposed by Rachel and Stephen Kaplan in the late 1980s, and they've shown that if you really fully immerse yourself in nature and have a real positive effect, can have a real positive effect on what you're on your motivation and how you're feeling and what you're trying to do. So finding the time to take purposeful walks in nature is really helpful. Now, I talked earlier about taking that hour's walk at lunchtime, and I can see everybody going, yeah, but I have this long list of things I need to do. And I'm sure you guys feel the same. But actually, you could take your work with your walk if you want. So if you've got a dilemma or a question that you're struggling with, or a tricky problem, you can start your walk by saying that question or focusing on that question out loud and saying something about it out loud. Then pack it away in your head and just go for a walk in nature and spend half an hour just really attentively looking at what's happening around you, and then go back to that question. And then for the rest of the walk, just hold that question lightly and just see what you might have picked up. And there's real evidence to show that you can see a shift, or that time spent in nature can see a real shift in how you're dealing with tricky problems. So don't see the walk necessarily as being separate from work. It can be part of your work. Take your work with your walk. It's quite interesting.
I love that, because it is actually, when you think about creativity, you think that you have to section it off, but actually those juices in the brains are flowing, and you become more productive. And I think once you start seeing those solutions, or you've had those aha moments for something you might have been stuck with at your desk for so long, banging your head on the table, which I do often, but at least then you feel like that walk is not just a must do, a tick box. It actually was productive time, not only for your health but also for your business. So I really like the way you reframe that, as don't think of it as, oh, it's my must do for health, but actually it's like, well, okay, let's incorporate it into the working business day. And I'm also seeing, again, maybe because I'm looking for it, but sort of like at home machines, like for working and exercising. So like how to put your tablet on this, or the walking machine under the desk. So there are things that you could perhaps put together, but I mean, ideally I like the idea of being outside more and getting outside. I think that's much more beneficial.
Yeah, just a note on that, I did get like an undercycle thing to put under the desk, but my knees kept hitting the bottom of the desk. It was absolutely pointless, so I ended up giving it away. But yeah, so I think the outside stuff.
Yeah, my Christmas present was a standing desk. So I try and for an hour a day, or a couple of hours a day, just do my work standing up, because if because it can be difficult.
You were talking about that, Christelle, yeah.
Yeah. But also my desk is right next to my window, so I've got a window here that means that although it's north facing, so I can't put it in a south facing room, unfortunately. I do get that light coming through, that natural light coming through, and it looks out over green space. So even if I can't get out, if it's really impossible, and I know that even looking at green space, whether it's real green space or a green picture, green space on a room, on your screen or on a picture on your wall, that's even been shown to have a positive impact. So it doesn't have to be that. Other ways are bringing plants and flowers in. You can see, I've got greenery behind me, but you can bring those. You can bring the outside in as well. So bringing nature in as well is really helpful.
Really good. Yeah.
Some great tips there. I was going to also ask. I mean, well, I suppose with the pandemic and COVID news and up and down, do you think that exacerbates like everything that we're feeling? It's just compounding. So have you seen, or do you think there might be an incline? So it's something that if you're looking after yourself or your teams, you have to be more wary of. I mean, I feel like people think they're coming like light at the end of the tunnel, and things are opening up. That must be a huge lift, but we're still there's still a little bit more of uncertainty that's coming through. I'm still seeing that, well, we don't know yet feeling.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering if you think that there is going to be a nice upward shift, away from this now with moving forward, or do you think that it's still staying with us? So we have to be mindful of that.
I think probably a bit of both. We know both at a micro level and a macro level, COVID's had an impact. So as us individually, we're not exercising as much. People aren't taking the micro breaks. 95% of people aren't taking the small breaks away from work that they might have done if they were in an office or working elsewhere. Those competing priorities that they've had to carry through lockdown, caring responsibilities, homeschooling. And God knows someone's old enough to school himself, but my colleagues with small younger kids have had, it's really been a challenge for them. But what we're also seeing then is the impact of the sort of economic uncertainty, and we're still seeing that. So we're seeing inflation rising, we're seeing the cost of living, energy prices rising. So that still is having that sense of uncertainty and that impact on businesses. So businesses have had to cut back on things like staff wellbeing budgets. So they're not spending as much on that, which is a shame because there's a lot you can do. That doesn't cost anything. So I think morale has definitely taken a big hit during the pandemic. The other area where I think we shouldn't forget is that of diversity, is that we're all individuals, and your diversity of, whether you have your own personal circumstances or people within your workforce can really amplify the impacts of COVID. We've seen that. So your carers, you're disabled, people from different ethnic minority backgrounds, and neurodiverse people conditions can really create additional challenges when it comes to motivation. So, for example, people with ADHD, they have lower dopamine levels, which is very similar to what happens actually during winter, because at winter your dopamine levels also reduce. So, in fact, some of those tips for motivation that ADHD people might need or use can also have a positive impact on what we do. So, so applying some of those, caring for the diversity of your organisation can actually impact and have a positive impact for everyone.
Oh, okay, that's really good. Yeah, that's really interesting, that, isn't it? Because I think a lot of times those people kind of get left out of it, and we so everyone else is just focusing so much on them and getting themselves better, but it's not taking that cross referencing over and seeing how one thing helps one person might help people in other ways. That's really interesting. Yeah,
we've had some great tips. Thank you so much.
I know.
I really feel like I'm more prepared. This actually, I'd love to ask you what your thoughts would be about just factoring in the seasons in our business, because, and I'll tell you why afterwards, but I just would love to hear from you because we had a little chat beforehand and I thought you had some brilliant insights. So, tell us, please share what you had said before.
Well, I suppose coming from the personal and then building out into actually how you manage your business full stop. So in terms of managing your days, so pay attention to the rhythm of your day. So if you're somebody who gets up in the morning, wakes up and gets really energized, gets more work done, is more productive in the morning or the evenings, then try and see if you can manage your work day around that. So that can be helpful. So for me, I'm really, really energized. I can get loads of stuff done in the morning and I can oddly do it at tea time. lunchtime I find things really distracting, so I'll be looking for the washing up to do, or taking the washing out, or I must need another coffee. So I try and make sure that I get up early in the morning, I exercise first thing, because it doesn't get done if I don't, and then I work for 2 hours to really get, because I know that will be good quality time. Creating some, these are things which are really helpful from ADHD people. So we've all got those long to-do lists which just go on forever, and even when you prioritize and then reprioritize, that list goes on. So I was given a procrastination notebook, which I haven't got to hand, but in it I put all the things which distract me. So all the things that come up in my email, things that or that I find interesting, I put them in as things to note. They don't become actions until I'm actually ready to action them. And so each morning then I look at the things to note and I say, these are the 5 things I think I can achieve today. And I just focus on those. So that's really interesting. So task lists be helpful. They're things like that. Setting up accountability buddies as well. Within, if you've got your own business, you can, with your teams, you can start saying, and these aren't people who are saying, right, why haven't you? These are people that you might phone and say, right, today I'm planning, and there's my 5 things, my list. And I do this with a fellow coach every day. We touch base, and again, it's that connection, that social connection. So we connect on a daily basis, and then we report back the next day and say, yeah, I did that, but and that accountability has really helped. But also, and this tip was given to me by a friend, having actually somebody on your screen. So if you've got your Teams open or Zoom open with a colleague, and you might have it muted, you might have it, so you can't hear each other, but knowing that they're there somewhere on your screen really can help you focus. It brings that sense of communal environment that you have in an office that you might lose if you're working at home. So those are things. Then with the work environment, then whatever you can do to get more light in, natural daylight in, opening the curtains, blinds, taking time outside, even if it's 15 minutes just to take a breath, really helps. Arranging those activities that you can do outside, walking meetings or working meetings, if you can. Find perhaps a shaded area where you can work on your computer or things like that. You can look at creating also this idea around creating quiet spaces and social areas. So some people need a quiet time or a quiet space, and other people need social areas and need the social things. And sometimes we need a bit of both. So if you can cater for that diversity within your workspace, that's fine. If you can't, then you might schedule it. So you might say, right, between 9 and 11, that's quiet time, and people aren't quite. We have social time between 11 and 2, and then quiet time again. So you can look at innovative ways that you could bring that into your workplace.
I think as well, the rise of co-working spaces. If you're on your own or if you're a solopreneur, like I'm booking into a co-working space on Friday because I feel like I need a bit more social activity and just focus. So even though I've got my to-do list of what I need to achieve, don't think, so this is great for businesses, and also you can do it as well if you are on your own.
Absolutely. And I was having a conversation with the local environmental charities where I'm going to be going to do some co-working to get that social connection, but also opportunities for future business ideas or you can pick up on. Other things you can do is, I said, the well-being and the exercise. We've seen well-being budgets cut. You can do things like setting team goals, like we're going to walk from John O'Groats to the equivalent of John O'Groats to Land's End as a team. So everybody goes out for a walk. You can get apps which say how far you've gone. You add that to a list, and once you've got there, I worked in an organisation last year, and that's what they were doing. They walked around the UK. They've gone to Paris. Obviously not but they've done all these challenges they've set, which they've completed as a team. So that's it. But also connecting your workforce with others. So we've talked about how you can do that internally, but you could, as a workforce or yourself, connect to a community group or a local charity, or a cause that's been aligned with your business values. That all you're tapping really into people's values, and that really helps with motivation. The other ways are actually looking about how you might align your business with the seasons, because I mentioned earlier that motivation drops in winter, but it also drops in summer, oddly enough, because people don't want to be sitting at the desk. They want to be outside in the sunshine. They want to enjoy these long days. So you'll see that motivation wanes. So the times when we're most productive are spring and autumn. So there's an Oxford-based business, two women creatives called Folk and Field, and they've been encouraging and working with businesses to encourage nature-based approaches to business planning and how you run your business. So framing your business around the cycles of the seasons. So winter being a time for reflection and renewing, spring is a time for emerging and growing, planting seeds and things like that. Summer for flourishing and nurturing, and then autumn for gathering and celebrating. Now, they acknowledge this as an ideal, and that, you can't necessarily plan your business around that. You can't see a hospitality business in December going, right, we're just going to be reflecting now, obviously that won't work. But you might be able to, if you were to map your business, the flows of your business over that, you might start to see tensions, and you might say, right, okay, well that's when we're going to have to pay attention to this. So if all my workforce are actually looking to want to, quieten down and reflect, and in January and February, that's what the seasons, that's what nature is telling us we should be doing. But we need to be bumping things up. How do we do that? Or can I shift projects to other times of the year where I know my workforce is going to be, or I'm going to be more in tune with what the demands of the organisation are going to be. So you can start planning around the seasons and around nature, which is a phenomenal idea. But yeah, there seems to be more of that happening as well.
Yeah, I love that idea. And one lady I know, she calls it the panarchic. I think it's a panarchic loop or something. So it's almost like an infinity symbol, but you've got your summer and your autumn, I think, and then your winter. I don't know which way around it goes, but it's that same thing. So it's sort of growth at certain times, I think spring and the autumn, and then it's more sort of quiet times in the summer and winter. Yeah,
but there's a similar thing called the eco cycle, which if you were to Google liberating structures eco cycle, it's an activity which is the same. It's a same infinity loop, and it follows that same nurturing renewal, but it also points out where you might get stuck. So if you're in that renewing, flourishing, planting thing, if you're not investing in your business then to grow at that point, then you're going to get stuck at that point. Or if at times of harvesting and at the end of those seasons you should be harvesting and then sort of dying down, actually, if you're not letting go of stuff that's not working for you, then that is going to mean that your business or your work is going to face challenges. So it helps you think about where am I on this cycle and where do I need to go. It's fabulous.
And you said October was the most productive time.
Yeah, from the evidence suggests that October, as is one of the most is the time. I think it's 27% increase in productivity. They're suggesting. So yeah, it was. I think that's fascinating, and like you could be then planning ahead for what you might for the winter. So if you know that you're not particularly great in January, you could be using that productive time to actually give yourself that space in January and February, perhaps to actually just say, I'm going to relax a bit now. I'm going to focus on asking perhaps more reflective questions around what I've done in the past year, and what brought me joy and happiness and that I want to do more of, what made me sad, and how might I avoid those things. So so giving yourself that space.
That's quite interesting, because I've noticed that with in networking circles, especially when you go to women's networking, it kicks off in September, and so you've had the long summer holidays, and people have been relaxing or spending time with their kids, and, summer holidays and everything, and then coming into September, it's like, right, everything kind of goes up a gear, and people are sort of really fresh, and they're sort of planning their business, and whereas on the other scale, I've seen it with January, isn't it? That very much, okay, December, are you planning for January for the next year? And actually, like you said, December, I don't want to be doing that. I think I tried to do that this last year, sort of take off that time in December to sort of plan, and it just didn't happen. So I think by maybe, like you said, taking it back to sort of October time and actually planning then for the coming year, for the next year, might be a better option.
Well, the interesting thing was that, I mean, I suppose this topic was inspired a year ago. I was listening to Clubhouse on my walk, you can hear Tanya, and trying to get out. And it was the time when I was listening to Clubhouse. And a really good colleague of mine, she's amazing. Her name's Rhiannon. She does 5 elemental acupuncture. And she was saying, you know, winter is the time to rest. It's the first time I ever heard it. And then she was saying, so, you know, maybe winter, you'll create it, you know, rather than try and force yourself to be upfront, visible, launching, like, are you having a disconnect with it? Which I definitely feel around winter. I just want to hibernate. I don't want to do anything. And I had to laugh because I don't know if you've ever seen the actress Mindy Kaling. I love her Instagram account. She had done something. I mean, I'd always heard about batching content. I've tried to do it myself, and you know, sometimes I'm good, sometimes I'm terrible. But if this ever inspired me, she had been posting up her Instagram content for a year, and then suddenly in September she announced, "Oh, I've just had a baby." And you look through, and she's got all these fashion items, and it's like, man, she bitches. Like she's actually like bitches, but she's a bitch. Like actually batches like a bitch. I've heard that phrase before, but yeah, she batches content so well that actually nobody knew, and it just got me thinking. And it's so good to hear, like, you know, if that's the most productive time, maybe that's when you batch your content, so that when you know you're having a dip, because it's so hard when you're trying to do your marketing and everyone's saying you must be visible all the time, and you know, you will see a dip if you suddenly take yourself off because you feel like, I need to look after myself, which is totally a valid reason. But having those posts, obviously not at the scale that she did, it was every day. Like, it was a fashion item, it was, you know, a cooking item. But it was amazing how to see, you know, actually she really prepared for that. And it's got to be a way of making life easier. Or if you're having a launch, actually thinking, right, for my business, or I can't do it for my clients, I must work with my clients, but maybe for my own launches, if I have to be energetic, or if I have to be really with it and engaged, then let me do it in the right framework according to what time of year it might be. So this has been super helpful. I absolutely think that you have been providing us with absolute gems. Thank you so much for coming. Yeah,
absolutely. For the invite.
Yeah, no, thank you. There's a lot there to take away. Definitely.
So let us know in the comments if you have any questions. We'll also be sharing this out on social. Don't forget to subscribe so that you get notifications of when we go live next. But it is every Wednesday at 10. We're back. So thank you very much for joining us, and we will see you next week. And thank you again, Tanya, for your time. Wonderful.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.